With another installment of the Lucia Capital Group weekly video, I'm Rick Plum. In last week's video, I illustrated how two sets of hypothetical portfolios with the exact same investments could have entirely different outcomes over 10 years simply by changing the date that a retiree began taking withdrawals. There's a link to that video here on the page, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch that one first for context, so that what I'm saying here may make more sense to you. Now, one of our imaginary investors had a diversified portfolio with $1 million and an inflation-adjusted $45,000 annual distribution starting on January 1st, 1990, and they wound up with a portfolio value of nearly $1.3 million just 10 years later. Our other imaginary investor, who simply placed their $1 million of assets in the S&P 500 and who took the same annual withdrawals, wound up 10 years later with just over $3.5 million. Now, we compared that with two other hypothetical investors who did exactly the same thing as the first two, but they started taking withdrawals on January 1st, 2000. What did they have 10 years later? Well, our imaginary S&P 500 investor had just $369,000 left, while the diversified portfolio one still had about $1.3 million. The only difference was the date that these retired hypothetical investors began taking money from their respective portfolios. One pair started in 1990, the other in 2000, with vastly different outcomes for the S&P 500 investors. Now, this was, as I said, over a 10-year period of time. But how would those hypothetical investors have done over a 20-year period of time? Well, let's take a look. From 1990 to 2010, our imaginary S&P 500 investor, that's the red line here on the chart, ended the 20-year period with assets of $2.7 million and a portfolio draw of about 2.9% given their $45,000 annual inflation-adjusted distribution. The diversified income portfolio ended with about $1.7 million and a portfolio draw of 4.5%, right about where they started. For the hypothetical investor who started on January 1, 2000, after 19 years, we see a big difference in results. Our imaginary diversified individual ended the period with just under $1.2 million and a 5.6% portfolio withdrawal rate. The imaginary S&P 500 investor? Well, they've got just $95,000 left of their original $1 million. After just 19 years, they're almost out of money. The point here is that risk and volatility matter, especially early on. Here are all four of the 10-year and 2-decade periods in one graph. The red line, hypothetical S&P investor, took more risk and had a far greater range of potential outcomes. The green line, hypothetical investor, potentially reduced their risk by diversifying and had a much smaller range of potential outcomes. And this is why we do what we do. If we want to reach our goals, we aim to reduce the amount of risk we take along with our potential range of outcomes. And since we cannot predict the future with any accuracy at all, we believe that defending against the possibility of loss may give us better results in the end. If you enjoyed this or any other video we've done, subscribe to our channel, give us a call. We're always here to help.